a peculiar weight that settles in around 28. It's not the crushing panic of youth or the settled resignation of middle age. It's something more unsettling. It's the awareness that the choices you make now aren't experiments anymore, they're blueprints. The friends who seem to fumble alongside you suddenly appear purposeful, directed. Meanwhile, you are caught between the person you thought you'd become and the reality of who you actually are. This isn't a quarter-life crisis. This is the recognition that the next 5 decisions you make will architect the next 20 years of your existence. You are old enough to recognize patterns, but young enough to feel trapped by them. The ambition that once felt like rocket fuel now feels like a burden you are not sure you want to carry. Every LinkedIn update becomes a measuring stick. Every wedding invitation feels like evidence that others have figured out what you are still questioning. The pressure isn't coming from external expectations anymore. It's coming from the gap between where you thought you'd be and where you actually are. This pressure is different from anything you've experienced before because it's internal, persistent, and achingly personal. It's the pressure of recognizing that you are responsible for designing your own life, and the blueprint you've been following might not be your own. The comparison game becomes more sophisticated now. You are not just comparing achievements, you are comparing entire life directions, and the stakes feel impossibly high. Viktor Frankl observed that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. For someone in their late 20s or early 30s, this means recognizing that the external validation you've been chasing, the promotions, the relationship milestones, the financial benchmarks, may not be the true measure of your progress. The real challenge is internal. Shifting from reactive ambition to intentional direction. This is the age where proving yourself transforms into defining yourself. The metrics that mattered at 24, salary bumps, job titles, social approval, suddenly feel hollow. You are beginning to understand that success isn't a destination you arrive at, it's a trajectory you choose. The question isn't, am I successful? The question is, am I building something that aligns with who I am becoming? This shift is uncomfortable because it requires you to abandon the external validation you've been chasing and start trusting your internal compass. It's the difference between performing success and creating it. You are realizing that the most successful people you admire aren't just achieving goals, they're living according to principles they've chosen for themselves. This requires a fundamental rewiring of how you measure progress. Instead of asking, "What will others think?" you start asking, "What kind of person am I becoming through this choice?" The shift from external to internal validation isn't just philosophical, it's practical. When your sense of worth comes from alignment rather than achievement, you make better long-term decisions because you are optimizing for different variables. The urgency you feel isn't always productive. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop optimizing and start clarifying. What you build in your 30s compounds exponentially in your 40s. The pressure to move fast can actually slow you down if you are moving in the wrong direction. Clarity isn't hesitation, it's strategy. Taking time to align your actions with your values isn't procrastination, it's precision. Think of this as strategic positioning rather than paralysis. The difference between movement and progress becomes crystal clear when you understand that direction matters more than speed. You are learning to distinguish between urgent and important, between opportunity and alignment, between what you could do and what you should do. This pause isn't about perfectionism, it's about intentionality. When you take time to clarify your direction, every subsequent action carries more weight because it's moving you towards something specific rather than just away from something you don't want. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This doesn't mean lowering your ambitions. It means recognizing that fulfillment comes from internal alignment rather than external accumulation. For someone building their foundation decade, this translates to choosing depth over breadth, quality over quantity, and authentic progress over impressive appearances. Albert Einstein once said, "Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value." The distinction matters enormously in your 30s. Success metrics are often comparative and temporary, while value creation is absolute and compounding. When you focus on becoming valuable, developing skills, building character, creating meaningful relationships, success becomes a byproduct rather than the primary goal. This is your foundation decade. The habits you establish, the relationships you cultivate, the skills you develop, and the character you build now will determine your options for the next 20 years. You are not behind schedule. You are at base camp for the most important ascent of your life. The metaphor is precise. Base camp isn't the destination, but it's where successful climbers spend the most time preparing. They don't rush to the summit with inadequate preparation. They build strength, acclimatize to conditions, and ensure their equipment is sound. Your 30s serve the same function for the rest of your life. The person who rushes through this decade, focused only on quick wins, will find themselves unprepared for the challenges and opportunities that come later. William James observed that the greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes of mind. For someone in their foundation years, this means recognizing that your current circumstances are less important than your current direction. You have the power to reshape your trajectory through disciplined thinking and intentional choices, but this power requires activation through consistent action. The compound effect of small, aligned decisions made consistently over 5 years creates exponential returns that most people dramatically underestimate. The book, written 15 minutes each morning, the skill developed through deliberate practice, the relationship deepened through consistent investment, the physical habits that preserve energy and health, the financial discipline that creates options. These aren't dramatic gestures. They're architectural decisions that create the infrastructure for everything else you want to build. Seneca taught that every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. This perspective is liberating for someone questioning their current path. You are not starting over. You are building on everything you've learned. Every apparent detour has been education. Every setback has been preparation. Your foundation isn't weak because it includes failure. It's strong because it includes resilience. This recognition shifts everything. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to make the decisions that will define the next decade. The weight you feel isn't pressure to catch up. It's the gravity of possibility pulling you toward intentional action. The next chapter of your life is waiting for you to write it deliberately. What you have now that you didn't have at 22 is perspective. You've tasted enough failure to understand resilience and enough success to know what actually matters. You've been in relationships long enough to understand the difference between chemistry and compatibility. You've worked long enough to distinguish between a job and a calling. This isn't wisdom born from decades of experience. It's clarity earned through focused living. This perspective is your secret advantage. While others your age might still be chasing external validation or following prescribed paths, you've developed the discernment to separate signal from noise. You've learned that the most impressive opportunities aren't always the most valuable ones. You understand that sustainable growth requires patience, that meaningful relationships require vulnerability, and that authentic success requires alignment with your values. This isn't just accumulated knowledge, it's developed judgment. You can now see patterns that were invisible at 22, which people drain your energy versus which ones amplify it, which challenges will develop you versus which ones will merely stress you, which opportunities align with your trajectory versus which ones are attractive distractions. Those early setbacks weren't detours, they were education. The job that didn't work out taught you what you don't want. The relationship that ended showed you what you won't accept. The business that failed revealed skills you didn't know you had. Every wrong turn has been building your capacity to make better decisions. Your failures are not evidence that you are behind. They're proof that you are building something solid. The toxic workplace that drained you for 18 months wasn't wasted time. It was an expensive education in recognizing red flags and understanding your non negotiables. The relationship that left you questioning everything wasn't a mistake. It was clarity about what you actually need in partnership versus what you thought you wanted. The side business that never gained traction wasn't a failure. It was market research and skill development disguised as disappointment. Each experience has been building your capacity to navigate complexity, your resilience in facing uncertainty, and your ability to extract value from difficulty. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." For someone in their positioning phase, this means recognizing that your capacity to handle challenges has been systematically developed through experience. You are not the same person who panicked over early career setbacks or relationship uncertainty. You've built emotional resilience, practical skills, and strategic thinking through navigating real difficulties. Small, disciplined actions taken consistently over the next 5 years will create exponential returns in your 40s. The book you write for 30 minutes each morning, the skill you develop 1 hour each evening, the relationship you invest in deeply rather than broadly, the savings you automate instead of hoping to save, the physical habits you establish before your metabolism changes. These aren't dramatic gestures, they're architectural decisions. Think of compound interest, but applied to every area of your life. The morning writing routine that produces a manuscript in 18 months. The evening language study that opens international career opportunities. The consistent exercise that maintains energy and health through increasing professional demands. The automated investing that builds wealth while you sleep. The weekly date nights that deepen partnership while others drift apart. The monthly mentoring conversations that accelerate your professional development. These small, repeated actions create advantages that seem sudden to outside observers, but are actually the predictable result of disciplined intention. The power isn't in the individual action, it's in the systematic approach. When you choose consistency over intensity, process over outcomes, and patience over urgency, you harness the most powerful force in personal development. That time working in your favor rather than against it. James Allen observed, "A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts." This principle becomes crucial in your positioning years because the thoughts you consistently think now are creating the person you'll become in your 40s. Every day you choose discipline over impulse. You are building a character capable of handling greater challenges and opportunities. Every time you choose long-term alignment over short-term convenience, you are programming yourself for better decisions. Marcus Aurelius taught, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For someone in their strategic positioning phase, this means recognizing that your response to circumstances matters more than the circumstances themselves. You can't control market conditions, industry changes, or other people's decisions, but you can control how you position yourself to handle these variables. Start focusing on your own progress. You stop waiting for permission and start creating opportunities. This decision to take ownership is both simple and profound. Simple because it's available to you right now, profound because it changes how you engage with every subsequent challenge and opportunity. The person who takes ownership of their trajectory makes different decisions, builds different habits, and creates different outcomes than the person who feels subject to external forces. Socrates declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." In your positioning decade, this means regularly examining not just what you are doing, but why you are doing it. The habits you are building, the relationships you are investing in, and the skills you are developing should all serve a larger vision of who you are becoming. Without this examination, you risk building an impressive life that doesn't actually belong to you. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This freedom becomes your greatest asset as you position for the next decade. Regardless of your current circumstances, your job, your relationships, your financial situation, you have the freedom to choose your response, your direction, and your growth. This choice is what transforms your 30s from a decade of pressure into a decade of positioning. You are not building a life of perfection, you are building a life of intention. The difference matters enormously. Perfection is brittle, static, and ultimately impossible. Intention is flexible, dynamic, and entirely achievable. When you choose intention over perfection, progress over performance, and alignment over achievement, you position yourself not just for success, but for fulfillment. The next decade is waiting for your decision. Choose deliberately,